Is that better?
Much
All right.
better.
Let's start the Finance and Administrative Affairs Committee. First, we'll call the meeting to order. Tina, would you take the attendance record?
I will, yes. So we have Bill McCarrier,
Here.
Alfonso Angelucci,
Here.
Dan LaValle, Suzanne Vasella,
Here.
Dominic Ionta.
All right. Thank you, Tina.
You're welcome.
Our next item of business is Administrative Affairs. Dr. Amir Mohammadi, Senior Vice President for Administration, Global Engagement, and Economic Development. Would you, you have the floor. Would you tell us what you have for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, trustees and my colleagues. If I may start with giving you some background on the meal plan pricing, if you don't mind to go to the next slide. If I give you some context about what we have done with our contract, as you know, we have acquired a new contract about a year and a half ago. We were contacted by Edinburgh University Vice President and Clarion, and they were asking us to lead them in the discussion for the food service, knowing that 2 years prior, we had done a very robust negotiations with the food services, and we are on the 4th year of not increasing our board rates, the food service rates. So they wanted to really come to the RFP, and we did that. As we started working through the RFP, the PASHI system, they asked us if we don't mind to really include Clarion, Edinburgh and us, but also IUP and California. We agreed, and as a result, I want to thank Dr. Chris Cole, who really did a great job. We worked on the RFP process, and they utilized our RFP, enhanced it to include them, and the result came out to be Aramark beating the current vendor, and that's for a 7-year, 7 years contract with 3 renewable options starting June of 2021. The new contract is a lot more simplified with the new structure, and I will go through that in a second. If you don't mind, please go next to the next. First, I want to thank my colleagues, Dr. Wilms and his team, Dr. Cole, and really SGA. We had numerous meetings with the students. I was included in 2 of them, and conversation ensued with them right before pandemic. And one of the things that we, through the survey, through the partnership and collaboration between the student affairs and the student services and all of us and SGA, we put the survey out. One of the things that we wanted to really hear from the students. And one of the things that they wanted was that when you go through this new negotiation, please give us more flexibility. And I am pleased to tell you, if you look at the 19 meals per week current plan that is finishing, it was at $1,785. And if you look, there is no increase for us. We're going to have the same pricing. However, students wanted to have additional flex dollars. They asked for it, they got it. The 14 meal plan had 0 flex, and as you could see, the pricing, it was $16.96. We are giving them the same meal plan and $350 of flex dollars, and it's $1,696. No increase in pricing. So this would be really a 4th year in a row that we do not have increase to our students. This is the cabinet, and all of us are very happy about it because this is not additional burden to the students. On the 10 meal plan, one of the things that we did, they had 0 flex. It was $1,568. by working, listening to students, we tweaked and we put the cost at $1,400 with 11% reduction in price and $350 in flex dollars. Again, students wanted it and they got it. One of another options for the block plan, it was $175, 175 blocks plus $100 flex. It was $1,624. And one of the things that we wanted to do to really bring more people into the food services. So we are giving a discount of 9% to go down from $1,624 to $1,475 with which is about 9% reduction, and $350 flex, which is really something that the students wanted. And then you could see the 7-meal plan, and plus it was $255 flex dollars, $1,568. We brought this down to 7-meal plan, to same meal plan by $100 flex, but then a 46% reduction to $840. So that is something that, you know, we are really proud. I think our students are going to welcome that. And the same next 75 block plan that they had before and $50 flex at $600. We kept that. And I think there is no price increase in there. So we are very pleased. We think our students are going to be very pleased. Our colleagues on the cabinet are very pleased. So hopefully you will be pleased today as well. So if there is no question, I'll go to next. Of notable features, one of the things that happens with the change in the food services, if we wanted to bring different vendors by talking with the students, and they're going to keep Quaker Steaks and Loop and a Starbucks, students wanted it, and they're going to move from one, the ADI, they're going to go to Aramark now. And then meal and cash credits and meal exchanges in retail operations is going to be available. And also mobile ordering, kiosk ordering. This is something that, you know, we have started a little bit, and this is going to be taking off more going to the next semester. And hopefully we will improve on those as we go. Next. If there is no question.
Amir, a question on that last slide. What do you mean by retail venues? Does this mean that they can go to restaurants in town?
The retail menus on campus.
Okay.
Where they could really could go to Boozle and they could put on the kiosk ordering on their cell phone, ordering it and picking it up, and more services to the students without going through the lines or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And then I need to talk with you regarding all of the auxiliaries, starting with dining services. We wanted to show you where we are, give you a panoramic view of the financial, the 3 years of actual, 4 years of actual, and the budget for fiscal year, where we are going to end up, and then the next 2 years in terms of the projections. As you could see, we have 2 reserves, one beginning fund balances that you could see on the top of the page going across, and one on the bottom of the page in yellow that you see is the life cycle fund reserves that we put projects in there and make sure that we do the enhancements as needed. As you could see, the fiscal year 21, we got affected with this pandemic and our revenues significantly went down. The expenses were also adjusted, significantly went down. And I want to thank, and this is really going to be not only for dining, but all across. We really worked hard to make sure that we decrease our pricing and decrease our expenses. At the same time, there was a really good working relationship, collaboration. Thank you, Dr. Berry. Thank you, Cabinet. We were able to reassign some staff. And I want to thank especially Lynn Motel, Dr. Welms, and Dr. Amanda Yale, we worked to reassign staff as we could, because we didn't want to lay off or furlough, but we were able to assign the staff to where they were needed. And thank you, Lynn, for working really hard with the unions to make sure that all of these things to happen smoothly. So as you could see, we're going to end up being at operating deficit of 1.5 million. And that's really because of the pandemic. Transfer to facility reserve, we decided and worked is zero, so that we didn't have as much to really put in there. However, we are going to have a net revenue of loss of 1.5 million. I would tell you, even though this is not looking good, but we are better than any other institution, I would say to you, with the exception of Westchester, but we have done really well, and higher education, because this is contractual. There are certain things we could not really avoid. So really the 1.5 million is the net revenue on the loss. But we are going to be covering it through the reserve, and we're going to end up at the ending balance of 1.7 million, which is going to go on the top of the fiscal year 22, as you could see on the next column on the budget side. And then we also have the life cycle reserves that we do the enhancement as necessary. So we still have the reserves and life cycle reserves that we could do things that really is not going to be affecting us, and is not going to be as much of the heartburn. This is the dining services. And as you could see, our revenue is going to be going down, and that's really because of the occupancy is going to go down. We're expecting a lower occupancy, but then we could adjust as the occupancy goes up, the enrollment gets better because of the pandemic, then we could really increase it. But this is really something that we have projected for next year. And then the fiscal year 23 is also a projection, but you could see that we are building the reserve back up. We will end up at the end of the fiscal year 23, we're going to be okay. We're going to have the beginning fund balance, the ending fund balance of 2 million, and the life cycle reserve about 1,300,000. Next. The rest of the auxiliaries, if I may go next, please. The Smith Center, same process for the auxiliaries. The first 4 years is actual. The fiscal year 21, as you could see, we had a reserve of beginning reserve fund balance of 1.6 million. The revenues is almost half, is because of one of the things we did to give the students relief. We did not charge them. We did 50% of the student union, student center fees. And then the expenses, we decreased as much as we could. And again, that's thanks to the colleagues reassigning a staff. And then we are going to be a deficit of 254,000. And we, based on the agreements with PASHI and working, we do not have we didn't put any obligation for the facilities reserve. For zero, we put in. And then you will notice that we're going to end up being at the end of the year projected to be $254,000 loss. But the ending fund balance is going to be 1.4 million. And then the life cycle reserve is about 2.8 million. We're projecting based on the students and the enrollment. We are, as you could see, our revenues is going to go back up, and then the expenses, you're going to see about 2.6 million. We are looking at the operating surplus of 636,000, and the year after 607. But going down on that column, you will see that ending fund balance of 1.4 million, 1,403,892, which is going to be going up there for the beginning fund balance of the fiscal 23. We are doing well relatively under the circumstances compared to any other institution that we have compared to. And if you don't mind, we go, and by the way, one of the things that we made sure we are making our obligations on the bonds is fully met all of our obligation under the bonds. Next, please. The campus recreation, this is a collaboration with Dr. Wilms and his team. Again, this is something we did decrease our revenues based on charging the students for half of the fees that we usually charge because of the pandemic. But same procedure, 4-year actual, the fiscal year, we are going to end up being a net revenue loss of 401,000. And then the ending, we do have a reserve that is going to go down to 48,000, and then it's going to go back up. And we're going to rebuild that as we go forward. But we have the life cycle reserve fund balance of 3.5 million. We could adjust if we need to. And our colleagues, they have done everything they can. And again, we reassigned staff. We did everything we can, thanks to the leadership, Dr. Berry and all the team members in the cabinet. We were able to work together in order to reassign some staff. And I'm pleased that, we are going to be looking good in this as well. Next. On the traditional housing, the same thing, we got hit, same procedure. The first 4 years is actual. The fiscal year 21, if I may go down, we're going to have an operating loss of 667,000, but we do have some reserves. And then that reserve is going to help us. The net revenue for this year is going to be about 667,000 in loss, with the ending fund balance at 1.6 million. Is going to go back up there for the beginning fund balance of 1.6. And we are looking, the life cycle reserves, we still have 1.3 million. We're going to be looking good, and we're going to build that up. As you could see, when you look at the fiscal year 22 and then the fiscal year 23, we are rebuilding the reserves going back up. And hopefully if the occupancy gets better and the enrollment, because of the challenges, I think we're going to do a lot better than what you see, but we wanted to make sure that we give you what we project at this point is going to look like. Next. This is the area that really I want to thank Dr. Worms again and the team in the health services. They have done a great job in working and addressing the needs of the students during this challenging time. Really, the hardest department is really health service that got hit with this pandemic, and they have done well. And as you could see, this is the one that really we need to look at. And we're going to be looking next year as how we could really enhance this. We may come back to you for some recommendations. As you could see, we are fiscal year 21. We are going to be at the net loss of 293,000 with the ending fund balance of 263,000. This is going to be affecting us, but then we're going to do everything we can. And one of the things that we are trying to do in the fiscal year 21, Dr. Worms, Dr. Cole, and some of the team members were working together to see if we could, some of the loss to be recuperated through the CARES Act is a little bit more, and I'm sure my colleague, Kerry Beckler will talk, that there's a little bit of more leeway in flexibility in utilizing the CARES Act too. So hopefully we could get ourselves reimbursed in there. There is no transfer to the facilities. So this is an area that we're going to have to watch. And as we go forward, we're going to have some recommendations for you. That concludes my auxiliary report. And if there is any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Amir, this doesn't have anything to do with what you reported, but it does have to do with student services. Are we making any effort to replace PNC Bank since they're going to close their office in our Smith Student Center?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, we have today, ironically, we put our RFP for the banking services out back in the street, and we are welcoming a number of banks. We are making sure that PNC, First National Bank, and Citizens Bank are all part of that competitive process. And the answer to your question, yes.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. McCarrier, if I could.
Sure.
Amir, I just wanted to ask, going back to the dining services contract,
yes,
how many other companies bid on this particular contract?
There were more than 5 companies, if I remember correctly, and AVI and Aramark and Sedesco pulled out. I think it was 4 or 5. Dr. Cole, do you remember when we? I don't know if Dr. Cole is there. It was 4 major companies.
Okay. And was Aramark the low bidder then, or just
Actually-
the most attractive, or?
Actually, good question. It was 2 aspects. It was both on the dollars that we managed to do the bidding and giving the score, and also the qualification on the food and the production in terms of the service. So really we had both.
Okay, so Aramark was the low bidder then?
They were not only low bidder, and also in the quality, they were ranked very high.
How much difference was there? Do you know how much difference between Aramark and the next lowest bidder?
I don't have it on top of my head.
That's
but
okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I don't have it, but it was significant.
Okay, and lastly, the references you call did you call references on the on Aramark?
Well, personally, I know Aramarks at the vice president level, but I didn't get involved. I know them. They're all part of whether it's Aramark or Sedesco, they have literally more than 400 or 500 universities. And I personally talked to a couple of them, yes.
Butch, just as a reminder, this was a joint bid across the system. So
That's
it
right.
was more centralized than we have done historically.
That's right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
And the answer to your question, yes, we did check the references and on the personal level and on the system level that they have done that.
Are there any other questions on this topic?
Hey, Bill, could I ask one question?
Sure, go ahead, Jeff.
One question and a comment. One is sort of a follow-up on your question about the bank as to whether or not PSECU was one of the people that received the RFP. And then my comment was, though, for Amir, I just wanted to compliment you on how you presented these financials. The 4-year look back and the 2-year going forward just eliminates so many questions when we see financial stuff. So I really like the format.
Thank you, Trustee Smith. And today, the information went out, as I mentioned. The credit union, Pennsylvania Credit Union, all the banks are going to get that.
Okay.
And we're going to make sure that without breaking any rules through the purchasing, informing them that the RFP is out there. And hopefully within the next 6 weeks, we will know what's happening and who has applied, and we're going to take it from there.
Are there any other questions?
Mr. McCarrier, I had 2.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
First thing was, if it is possible in those budget years to put in whether you're building a fee increase into that number. I don't know if that's possible to put that in somewhere, just so that we know whether we're expected to raise those fees during that period. And then my other question is on the student health services. Have we reached out to the county at all? I know our county is like trying to find things healthcare related to give money to at this point.
Answering your question, the fees are as is today. That's why we're going to come back and visit with you. In terms of, I didn't want to take the liberty of increasing the fees without you knowing it. But we wanted to show, if we do not increase the fee, this is what it would look like. So we're going to come back to you hopefully the next time when we are presenting. And regarding the county, there has been some conversation, not at the level of, but I would like to ask to see if Dr. Wilms could chime in, but no, not at this point, because the services are very, very unique to the campuses. But I'm going to ask Dr. Wilms to see if he could chime in on that.
I guess I'd throw a question back. Are you referring in terms of COVID funding? Or
Yeah,
just
I know
general
that
funding?
like Yeah, our
She was
county,
a model,
any,
and now she works like in a modeling agency, and I think she wants mayor, and after she graduates to go to New York.
Dom, would you mute
She
your,
got to take a look at all you girls.
Damayanti, you need to mute your phone.
so just back to my question, I know COVID related, like in the CARES Act, the county is just looking to give away money at this point.
Mr. Ziegler, if you could
That's
use
what
your
Nicole
privileges,
said.
please. There we go.
Yeah, certainly. I have not heard anything specifically about Butler County looking to push out their CARES Act funding. We certainly are getting direct CARES Act money as a institution of higher education. And so we are working, Amir and I are working closely to make sure we apply those funds wherever we can. We will we'll reach out to our partners at Butler County and see if that is the case for them in terms of looking for places to spend their CARES Act money. We'd be happy to work with them and take their money.
Yeah, and if I may add to what Dr. Wilm just said, we just became aware, and Dr. Berry knows, we just became aware that there was a major amount of a 20-some million to Grove City, and they have, they are, the amount of money they have been giving them, it is within the range of us, even though they're in a different county, that it includes SRU, and we are exploring opportunities for us to have that conversation with them and see what we could do to have them help us.
This is Grove City Hospital, not Grove City College.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Berry.
Yeah, Grove City Hospital, AHN basically got an influx of money to help serve the community. So in fact, we've been talking to them, AHN sort of broadly about vaccine clinics on campuses and things like that. So that's going forward. One other comment I want to make on this, and as a precursor to what you'll see from Carrie Burkbickler in a little bit, is federal money has come in 3 waves. And the first wave is essentially spent. The second wave, we're still getting guidance on how to spend. And the third wave sits behind that. So the numbers you see don't include those 2 waves of funding. So in many ways, what you're seeing is the likely worst case scenario. And then as we find out where we can apply federal money, we'll apply it against that. Because you're about to see, or if you've looked carefully at the slides, a lot of slides with a lot of deficits. Again, that's the outsized deficit, not knowing how we could spend federal money, and the federal money will be applied to that once we get the rules. And to give you a sense of the moving target for this, Amir alluded to the fact that we can now spend some of the second phase federal money to reimburse ourselves for some of our losses in auxiliaries. As early as a week and a half ago, we didn't think that was possible. So this really is an evolving situation. And so as you ask questions, if we hem and haw around the federal money, it's simply that it's getting redefined as we speak.
Can I just ask one follow-up question, Dr. Ahmadi? So you said there is no fee increases built into the budgets we've been given for fiscal year 22 and 23?
That's correct.
So there's no return to the 50% to the recreation and the Smith Center in these numbers?
Well, actually, it goes back up on the revenue side. If you notice on the student health service, that number didn't change. But if you go on the Smith Center, if you don't mind, can you go back to the Smith Center? If you notice, we're going to go and the 50% is going to go back to 100% when we go when we start the year, and it's like $210, 220. I think it's $210.50. We charged 50% this year. We are going to resume going back to full amount.
And
so,
Josh, that's
no
not
increase.
No
No
increase.
increase.
Just suspended half the fee, so it's actually not an increase. It's just going back to where we should have been.
So I guess clarification then. So did we, when we voted, did we suspend for just the 1 year, or do we need to vote to return the fee to 50%, additional 50%?
It was my understanding that when you voted, it was that 4 year. Going back to normal is going to have to be resumed, but it's the this is part of the parliamentarian discussion, but I really do think personally, if we are going to go normal, it's part of the process that we already have approved.
We'll have to go look at the exact wording, but I know the intent was a 1-year suspension. Let's take a look at the exact wording to make sure that we captured the intent.
I think that we will have to vote on that, but that's just my opinion from what I remember our vote, because I think that it was a reduction in fee of 50%. It didn't have a time frame on it.
And you may, I think, yeah, we
We'll
will
go back
look
and
at
look
it.
at it, and we'll bring it to the June meeting if necessary. I can tell you the intent was a 1-year suspension, if you will, during the COVID crisis. If we didn't word it carefully, we'll have to go back and revote.
Yeah, I'm looking at at least the special meeting minutes discuss the purpose of the meeting to review the proposal of 50% for the 2021 academic year. And that seems to go in accordance with the actual motion that was made. So I think that limitation was there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It would be the special meeting minutes of August 4th, 2020.
Thank you, Matt.
But that's a very good question, Trustee Young. But that really brings me to this question, Trustee Young, that do we need to get you approving this new pricing? Because yes, it was a PASHI for the food service side, because we are going to be decreasing it, no changes. So that really brings me to that question as well. So I'm glad that you're raising it. Personally, it's a new contract going forward, but really it's up to the trustees how you would like to have this handled. In terms of the approving it in the voting as the trustee votes.
When does the contract start, Amir?
Yeah, the contract starts really May 31st.
So we need to vote today then if we have to vote on this.
Yeah, this would be the new rate for the dining. That really prompted me because it's a new contract.
But Bill, in truth, the students wouldn't be engaging in any meal plan purchasing till after our June meeting. So you could choose to push off in June. It's more convenient around billing to be able to get it all in beforehand. But if the trustees were to choose to push it to June, we could make that work. But I'd much rather do it sooner rather than later.
Well, I think we can just have a blanket motion to approve the new contract with that new company, can't we?
This is Bob. Can I ask a question? I'm confused on this whole food service thing. I don't understand what we did. Have we been talking about putting this contract out for a while? I guess I may have missed something, but this isn't even on the agenda today as an action. And now we're finding out we're supposed to approve this contract. It seems that I'm not sure what's going on here. Do we have a contract with AVI right now?
The contract ends the 10-year at the end of this May 31st. That's why 2 years ago, if you remember, Trustee Taylor, you were very much in favor of putting the RFP out there, and finally we did by working with PASHI.
Okay, so what is your recommendation on the contract? Are you recommending a new firm taking over for AVI?
Really, this is now a PASHI contract for us. Yes, well, the AVI will go away and Aeromark is taking over.
Yeah.
So we're now bringing Aramark on campus as our food vendor.
That's correct, sir.
And when did PASHI take over? Is this part of the consolidation where all their backroom activities are consolidated, and this is the PASHI-wide system?
That's correct. This is a Western Pennsylvania shared services that we all agree.
So under Act 50 now, so in the past, when we did either a new contract with AVI or we did increases on an annual basis, if they weren't automatic to the contract based on CPI, we had to vote on those. Do we have that authority to vote on this now under Act 50?
Under Act 50, you're not voting on the contract because that's been brought to shared services. What Amir is asking, what occurred to him, if I understand correctly during this conversation, is we are actually reducing the fees to students under this, and you do historically vote on fees, and it's a fee reduction, and I would imagine that wouldn't be controversial because we like to try to keep the costs for students down. But I think Amir is just it had dawned on him while he was discussing it since it is a fee reduction, since in the past you voted on fee reductions, would it be cleaner and make sense to ask you to vote on the fee reductions as laid out in the food services table? Kelly, if you can go to the food services table. And so it wasn't a planned action item, but in the committee, my understanding of Robert's rules, the committee can decide to add an item to its agenda. And you could choose now to vote on the food service, on the dining service fees as laid out in, it's actually, Kelly, it's previous set of slides. There we go.
That's correct.
You can vote now on the proposed price column on this slide, or you can wait and we can do it as a formal proposal in June. The only challenge that creates is it'll have our billing folks have to wait to do the final billing. And for clarity for our incoming students, it'd be a little bit cleaner to have it now, but we can make it work either way.
Does anyone object to taking this forward for the full board to vote on today?
I mean, my general thought would be to do it just as I mean, there's a third option. The third option is we understand this, but we have a chance to reflect on it. And we do it by special meeting, which should last all of 15 or 20 minutes. That's my 2 cents.
Is that what you want to do,
I don't
Mr.
think
Chair?
Not, I'll leave Mr. McCarrier to your committee. And if someone brings in the public meeting, if there's a motion at the public meeting, we certainly have to entertain it. I'm just weighing in with my 2 cents.
Well, would somebody like to make a motion to move this forward to vote on this afternoon? No motion being present, then we'll ask Matt, you have a special meeting as soon as possible so that we can vote on this and our people can go ahead with their billing processes.
Hey, Bill, could we get, I don't have access to the slides that have been shown, so I didn't see any of the numbers that Dr. Mohammadi had posted, but if we can get that package emailed to us, some of us might want to review those numbers a little bit. I have another question though, because I'm going back to the contract situation. So I noticed that the contract, in the normal course of business of contracts on this agenda, those are now informational items. I know that at one point we agreed to vote on all those as one vote, the different types of contracts. But when are we not considering contracts as action items anymore on our agenda? Have we been not?
Yeah, we made that decision several meetings ago. Matt, do you know when it was?
Well, I believe that's in Act 50.
Right.
So Act 50 eliminated that from our scope. Laura, if there's anything you can add, Laura Neal, but that wasn't by choice. That was one of the changes to Act 50 legislation that contracts, fixed contracts, POs, and the third one that I'm missing it's not in our scope anymore. So we're providing information, but it doesn't fall to us.
Let's go back to this meal plan. Matt, are you willing to call a special meeting then in a couple of weeks or whenever?
I think that makes sense. I mean, so the materials, yeah, and I think it would be preceded with just a review. So the materials that Dr. Mohammadi presented are probably behind tab 10.
Yes.
But maybe, right. So we can do a resend of that, a brief description, have any questions answered, and we can do a special meeting on that within the next, if it works with the administration, we can do that from within the next month. I mean, we don't need to jam up accounting, but I would feel better if we have a chance to take a breath. I mean, we saw this in our materials, but weren't prepared for an action item. So
yeah, it was in the materials that we received.
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone object to this plan then to have a meeting whenever our chairman can call it within the next month? Okay, let's move ahead then.
Hey, Bill, I
Yes,
certainly don't object to the special meeting, but could we get some clarification from Pashi prior to that meeting? Because Act 50 now permits them to do group contracts such as this one that involve a number of universities. What is the process? Do like in this case, all 3 universities have to approve it. And I just think we need some clarification, because maybe those other 2 universities need to have a special meeting to approve it as well.
Well, Jeff, what would happen is if you didn't approve this, we would still have to pay Aramark these prices, but we would then charge the students whatever you tell us to charge the students, and we'd have to eat the cost. That's
Okay, so we're not approving the contract. We're just but if we don't approve, okay, I'm lost now. Say that again?
Act 50 took away your right to approve this contract.
Right.
So what you have the right to do is approve what goes on a student's bill.
What the assessment to the student is. So
yes,
if the contract hit it at $100, I'm sorry.
I think what Jeff is asking is, can Tashi tell us what other contracts are shared services contracts? Is that what you're asking, Jeff? In other words, what other contracts are like the food?
Well, and maybe I missed something, but I assumed what's in the contract is essentially a pass-through cost, that we're not making money, we're not losing money, that whatever this contract with Aramark is, that's what we're billing our students. So if that's the case, and if PASHI has taken away our ability that we no longer have to approve this contract, then by default, they've taken away the need or our ability to approve these fees, because, or unless we're going to say, no, we're not going to change. I mean, it gets very confusing if we say, we're not going to approve these fees, we're going to approve the past fees, and suddenly this is a moneymaker for us. Is that what you're suggesting would happen?
You could do that, or you could turn around and say, gee, this is all too expensive. We want the 19 meals per week plan to be $1,500. Then we have to figure out somewhere else in our budget how to pay the $285 per student to cover that. You can determine what goes on the student's bill. You just can't determine what we pay Aramark.
Gotcha. So we can decide what our vote will basically be. Are we going to subsidize the student meal plan? Are we going to make money on the student meal plan? Or are we just going to do a pass-through?
That's exactly right.
Practically, if it was a higher amount, it would be a decision of, do we raise the student assessment to the contractor, do we subsidize it? But maybe along the same point, Jeff, to your point, while if we do this special meeting, we know that Act 50 has some language. It does give the trustees a little bit of discretion on some shared services. Maybe we should just build that into that hour, speak to this, and then a little bit of information about some of the changes that deal with shared services.
Yeah, and I know Laura is listening on the call. We could ask her to do a workshop for the trustees around that to make sure we're all clear. Because fundamentally, if you were to vote to accept the column that says proposed price, you would basically be agreeing to reduce the price for 3 of the meal plan options, because we were able to get a better price from our vendor for those three options. And that's what we would be asking as an administration. You can choose to mark everything up so that this makes a profit. I'm not recommending that. Or you could choose to make everything cheaper so that we have to eat it somewhere else in our system. And after I'm done weeping, I won't recommend that either.
But to your point, Bill, there's limited ways that the university can make more money. This would be one of them, is what you're saying in this case.
And I would caution you against that, because this is also a really disproportionate way to do it, because it's only the students who buy a meal plan who would be doing it. So it'd actually be it would be a lot of pain for a little bit of money. We already have a complaint that our meal plans are what often will price students out of our residence halls because they could live cheaper. And I compliment the folks who did this negotiation. I know Amir was in on that, because we actually have some options now that might encourage more students to stay in our residence halls.
Hey, I'm the one who voted against the music fee. So
trust me, I'll remember that forever. So yeah, I know that.
Yeah, so I'm not promoting make money on meals.
All right, are we ready to move ahead? Have we?
Can I ask one other question? Can I ask one other? I'm really confused by this consolidation thing. So we got 3 schools that are consolidated in Western Pennsylvania. if we're not in that that set of three, we're still sharing services with who? I don't understand who our shared services contract is.
We can be sharing services with all 14 schools sometimes. We could be sharing it with schools that are subsets. It really depends on the nature of the contract. But the idea is that at least theoretically, if we go into large contracts, the contracts drop because of economies of scale and the system benefits. That's the theory behind this. Now, it is your right as a council, and I'm not recommending this. I want to be clear, but it is your right by 2/3 vote to pull out of shared services. But this on this contract, it's kind of a net neutral for Slippery Rock. You know, we didn't gain massive amounts. We didn't lose massive amounts. On most contracts, that's probably going to be what it is for Slippery Rock because we tend to have an economy of scale already because we're larger. But we can sometimes share our economy of scale with the smaller schools, and they can maybe save $300,000 on a contract, and on their budget, that might mean an awful lot. And so, by and large, that's the theory behind the shared services. I don't see it as particularly harmful to Slippery Rock, which is why I haven't been kicking and screaming about it. I don't think it's going to do wonders for us positively either. But if this is a way that we can help boost our peer institutions so they become stronger and frankly, they're not a weight on us for other ways, that's what I would look forward to.
One thing I need to add for clarity, when Pashi put this out there, this was done with a committee and it was competitively went out there for all those major contractors. This was the most attractive to the students, but then the decision of being a part or not, it really is part of the Pashi discussions. And I do not think I don't think we have the ability to pull out because that's going to change the pricing. But
yeah, Act 50 says pretty clearly that 2/3 of a vote can pull out of shared services. I don't recommend that because we'd have to go out and start this RFP all over again. I don't know how we feed our students in the fall.
That's correct.
To be honest with you.
Is there anything else? All right, we'll have a special meeting to vote on this at the will of our chairman whenever he feels it's ready to be voted on. All right, Amir, do you want to move ahead with the next items on your agenda?